Joining us right now exclusively from Bentonville, Arkansas is Doug McMillon. He is Walmart's CEO. And Doug, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
Morning, Becky. Morning, Joe and Andrew.
Let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing. We heard from the company yesterday, saw the earnings that were stronger than anticipated, saw that revenue was up by more than $2 billion than the street had anticipated for the quarter, and saw that sales, same-store sales, were up by 10%, with digital sales up incredibly sharply by about 74%. It's hard for us to kind of go through that and figure out what you're seeing in terms of the consumer. So maybe you can start with that, Doug, because as the largest retailer in the world, people look to you to try and figure out how things are going here in America. What do you see?
Yeah, sure, Becky. First of all, I'd just like to thank our associates. They've done an incredible job through this whole period serving customers. And as you mentioned, we've seen volatility. It was a tale of different periods of time as we went throughout the quarter. I think everybody saw the quarter in the U.S. started in a relatively routine way, but then quickly moved to this stock-up period that was covered, widely, and we sold a lot of paper goods and hand sanitizer and cleaning supplies and things like that. And then the food came. The volume was strong, and then we went through a period of time where, as people stayed home, we saw them solving problems as it relates to entertaining themselves and their families and educating kids. Different categories took off, puzzles and categories and crafts sold at rates that we haven't seen in a really long time. And then towards the end of the quarter, we saw a different phase, and I think it was driven by stimulus money in the U.S. more than anything else, where other categories started to take off. And during the period of time, it was interesting being in stores and watching our sales online and watching America kind of move together at times. Adult bikes took off and sold out, and in the stores these last few weeks, it's been hard to find an adult bike. So we're trying to get back in stock at this point. We ended up the quarter down in inventory, and so we're in recovery mode right now.
Hey, Doug, just in terms of being in recovery mode, that is something I've heard from a lot of retailers, that they've never seen anything like this in their careers, that things are changing not just on a monthly basis, but on a weekly basis, and trying to figure out where the consumer is headed next. How much of your time does that eat up, and what can you tell and kind of divine just based on what you're seeing right now?
Yeah, it is a situation where we've got to watch it week to week, and our replenishment teams and merchants are doing a great job of reacting and responding as our store managers. I think, this second quarter started off, as we mentioned yesterday, relatively strong, and it's a continuation of how the quarter ended. And it kind of depends on what's happening in each local community, in each state. As you see the country start to reopen, there are different things happening in Georgia, Florida, or in the Northeast, for example, and we've got to respond to what those customers are looking for at that time. It's clear that people have been at home and they look around and they think, I want to replace that lamp, or I want to replace that office desk. And then they started thinking about the outdoors as they got out into the backyard and the front yard, and they realized they needed to do some landscaping. So we've certainly seen those categories take off. So right now, people are starting to think about, in some cases, going back to work, and we've seen those trends show up in the health and beauty aids categories and footwear, where people are starting to think about going back to work, and we want to be there for them as they prepare for that too.
Walmart has always been a company that does well during strong times because you're everywhere. I think there's a Walmart store within 10 miles of 90% of the population. But you've also done very well in downturns in the economy because you offer value and offer bargains for people. I just wonder if you can see, based on the number of unemployed people we have in this country right now, what the consumer is feeling, how strong they feel about things based on the types of purchases that they're making. Are these consumers who are worried that they're not going to have a job a few months from now?
Before the stimulus money started to flow in the first quarter, we could see private brands, smaller pack sizes, opening price points starting to surge as a percent of total. As the stimulus money started to become available to them, that changed and discretionary purchases went up. So, Becky, when I think about what the future looks like, I do think about it locally first. I think the U.S. economy is going to be made up of what happens on the ground in each one of these communities and across the states. And we've all got to work together, the private sector, government, state, local, federal, to help put all the pieces in place so that we can sustain that. And I think if the consumer generally feels like they're going to have a job and access and to money and some form of security, we'll see them spend it. If they don't, we won't. So the unemployment numbers got to be addressed. The thing that's on my mind right now, more than anything else, is small business. I think we all have to work together to make sure that those that need support get it. And small business, as part of this Phase 4 legislation that's being discussed, needs to be addressed. Minority communities, lower income communities, they've got to be addressed because we've got to bring everyone along in this economy. And I think that'll play out in our business. We'll see the differentiation, and to the extent that we can as a country, we want to make sure that this recovery is lasting and includes everyone. So we've learned by being open through this whole process that there are a number of pieces that have got to be put in place to make that possible. I think we're a bit of an example of how others should be thinking about this. There are operational procedures to adjust. We adjusted our store hours. We clean at night. We're metering customers into stores. So there's operational things. Then there's this issue around social distancing, and we've taken a number of steps to create distance and protection for our associates and for our customers. And people wearing masks and things like that have got to be done as it relates to PPE. So if you have that combination of things and you execute them well, I think we can put the economy back to work while protecting people at the same time. And this is really an and situation. It's not an or situation. And as I watch the news, that's the thing that keeps coming to my mind is we sometimes debate this as if it's one thing or the other, and it's really an and we've got to work together to put all those pieces in place, including testing in a big way, and then eventually a vaccine so that the economy here can thrive again.
Do you see this playing out in difficult ways in your stores? I mean, we know that there have been some areas where people don't want to wear masks, where employees feel like they have to be the ones who are policing that and trying to kind of monitor all of those issues because not everybody thinks that they should be forced to wear a mask when they go into a store. How do you handle that?
Yeah, I've been going out during this period, and I've been to North Carolina and Virginia, Texas, Ohio, Nebraska, and of course here in Arkansas. And I've seen customers behave differently as time's gone on. And I have seen some regional differences. But generally, customers and our associates are working together. I do see people using the directional arrows in our aisles. I see them creating some distance. Of course, there are exceptions, and we need a partnership with our customers here to get this right. But there's a lot more good behavior than there is concerning behavior. And I think in time, everybody will figure out, I sure hope that they do, that this is incumbent on all of us to behave in a way that enables the economy to respond in a positive way, in a sustainable way, so we don't end up taking two steps forward, one step back, and then another step forward. That kind of volatility probably will happen to some extent, but it's not ideal.
Hey, Doug, first of all, let me just commend you once again for everything that your company has done and what all your employees are doing. Every experience I've had there, I feel like I have to thank all of the people who are on your front line. But I do have what may be a tough question for you, and it's really a public policy question to some degree. There are a lot of small business owners out there, and maybe if you put even your business roundtable hat on this, who say we've effectively been put out of business by the government. And in fact, Walmart has been to some degree a beneficiary of the rules and regulations which have limited our ability to compete. And it's not just that we're out of business now, but we're worried that either we won't be able to get back in business, or because Walmart's done so spectacularly that you've now captured some of those customers that may not go back to some of those small businesses which are so needed as we try to rebuild the economy. What do you tell them?
Well, I think that those of us that stayed open needed to, and, the country needed access to food and essentials. And for those of us that operated during this period of time, our associates, as you said, did step up, and they are every day coming to work and serving others, and we are really proud of them. As it relates to those businesses that had to close, we got to get them open and going. I think in the retail industry, competition is good, and I do not celebrate it when other retailers go away. I think we want more retailers, not fewer. And as it relates to restaurants and other types of small businesses, lodging, travel, we got to light these things back up. So from a BRT point of view, I think working together to make good advice available to government officials so that they can set smart policy to help support those industries that need it. And then more broadly, laying down this support for small business. As I've been traveling around, Andrew, I'll see different businesses along these streets around our stores, some open, some not, some doing pickup, some not. And I wonder how many of these are going to open back up. And I think the majority of them will, but we want as many of them to open back up as possible. And so what the BRT did is it went through each industry, retail, manufacturing, and others, and we laid out plans on how to reopen safely. And I think that's one of the things that we can do to add value, because we need to get people going as quickly as we can and do it in a safe manner. And I think that's really important for the country, and that's what we want to see. And Walmart supports a lot of small businesses. We've got a lot of small business members at Sam's Club. Those are really important to us. We want them to come back online. We've been doing things like advertising for small businesses on samsclub.com and with Sam's Club emails to support those small businesses. We serve a lot of small businesses through our marketplace seller business, and that's robust, and hopefully we can help in that way. We're starting to launch a fulfillment service so that we can serve them better. So we do think about the platform that Walmart creates for small business and want to help make it robust so that we can get as many of these businesses back up and running as soon as possible.
Hey, Doug, as it happens so often, Washington is in the midst of another great debate about what more it should do to try and help the country, and the liability issue seems like it's down, between partisan lines once again. Do you know how that should be handled? How would you like that to be handled when someone reopens and maybe in their best interest tries to keep everyone safe? And we're all just trying to do the right thing here. We want people to work, we want people to get paychecks, and we want people to be safe, but we don't want lawyers just lining up while waiting for the next J&J talc or whatever it is. How should we do this?
Yeah, Joe, I think some level of support there is needed, some form of liability protection. Again, particularly for small and medium-sized businesses that may not have all the resources that they need to come back online, as quickly as some of our larger companies did. So I think that debate should happen, and some level of support should be provided. No one in this country wanted this to happen. It's a virus that has spread across every part of the country, and we just need to work together to try and create a safe environment for businesses to come back online in every way. And I think some form of liability protection for them is a piece of the puzzle.
Hey, Doug, we spoke with Dan Bartlett about a month and a half ago from your shop, just talking about what you guys were doing to try and pull people in and put people to work. I know that Walmart had been going around and hiring people and trying to hire people from some of those industries that had been most hard hit, where lots of furloughs have taken place. Kind of amazing to hear that you hired 235,000 people in the United States just over the course of the quarter. Carl Quintanilla did the math on that yesterday. I did some on it too, and it sounds like that's 2,000 people a day, more than a person a minute. How did that go? How did you do it, first of all, and how are those associates working out?
Yeah, it's been kind of unbelievable, really, how that's happened. And our team that put together an expedited hiring process deserves a lot of recognition and appreciation, because they figured out a way to do it so quickly. In our case, we wanted to make sure that the associates that needed to stay home, they didn't feel well, they had a pre-existing condition, whatever, had the ability to go on leave. So we adjusted our paid time off policy, and we put a 3-tier leave policy in place so that people would feel comfortable doing that. We also, when the crisis started, just had openings and we're hiring. And so we moved quickly to start creating this expedited hiring process. And as we did it, we found a lot of people that worked in food service needed work, and they were coming. Some people from the hospitality industry, other retailers. And so it just grew and grew and grew. And as some people took leave because they should and needed to, these folks joined the company and helped get some of this work done to serve the country. And we're grateful for that and appreciative of it. I was in a store the other day where I was talking to an associate that had been with us for more than 25 years. And right next to her was a gentleman that had started just a few weeks ago who had come from another retailer. And they had already formed a relationship and were having a good time serving customers in the toy department. And that was pretty cool to see. Now, more than half of these associates we've hired as temporary. We'll figure out as time goes on, how many of them stay. You know, our online grocery business, our store pick business has really grown. And so we need help picking orders at store level, increasingly for general merchandise, not just food, so that we can drive our business as it relates to pickup and delivery. And so we're going to need people, and we've hired a lot of great people during this period of time, and I expect a lot of them to stay with us. Some of them can go back to their job before if that's what they want to do, and we would have been happy to have helped during this period of time.
Hey, Doug, there have been a lot of problems with the supply chain. People still can't find toilet paper on a regular basis, Clorox wipes, Lysol, those types of things. We also have heard about problems in the supply chain when it comes to beef and beef production. What other issues do you see in the supply chain, and what kind of status would you put on some of those issues at this point?
Yeah, we're working to recover in the categories you just mentioned, and I'd like to thank our suppliers for all the work they've done to operate safe facilities and help us recover. There's been a really strong partnership there. But at this point, Becky, there are a lot of different categories that are sold out. I mean, I've never seen a craft and fabric department sold out like I'm seeing now. I mentioned adult bikes earlier. It's hard to find an adult bike. Some categories in general merchandise and sporting goods have sold out as people are doing things in their backyard and wanting to move and do things with their kids. So it's somewhat of a widespread issue right now across the store where we've got in-stock opportunities, and we're obviously working on that.
Doug, I know that Walmart owns most of its own real estate, but what about some of those shopping centers where you're an anchor tenant in an outdoor shopping center? What's been the impact of other stores that haven't been open there? And in places where you pay rent, are you paying full rent?
We're paying full rent. We did, on the flip side, actually forgive rents for those that use the space inside of our supercenters in the U.S. for April and May. And so, one of the things that went through our mind, Becky, was we are open. Many people are not. Our priorities are, number one, support our frontline associates, give them everything they need. Number two, serve customers. And number three on our list was help others. So we were looking for places, whether it's in payment terms or the lease issue I just described, hiring people where we could help other people during this period of time. We learned a big lesson during Hurricane Katrina back in 2005 about not worrying too much about the short-term P&L and just doing everything you can that you think is right, knowing that in the end that'll be rewarded in the appropriate way. And so it's been wonderful to see our associates figure out ways to help other people. And in the case of our locations, you're right, we do own most of those, and we need those businesses that are surrounding the stores to be strong and come back online. And so I'm hoping that happens, and it's important that at each state level, community level, that we do this in the right way so that they can and do so safely. And we've done some things to try and share what we've learned with other people. Our Sam's Club team has invited small business owners into our buildings where we walk them around the steps that we've taken with PPE and with social distancing and other operational changes, and maybe that's one way we can help.
Doug, you're a global company, and you saw this pandemic hitting your stores in China. You were one of the early voices to say this is a big deal, and we need to get our arms around this quickly. What have you seen as businesses reopen in China, and how tricky is that? And are those measures that are being taken in China, can they be replicated here? Do you think it's going to be a similar sort of emergence? Because China does take some pretty drastic measures in terms of tracking its people and not allowing visitors from other nations to come in until they've quarantined for 14 days. So what's the experience you've seen there, and do you expect it to be replicated here?
I think it could be replicated to an extent, but each country is unique. The U.S. is different than China and is different than the other markets where we operate. We're in 27 right now, and we do see variants. Different governments, different societies are handling this situation in different ways. In the case of China, you're right. We started to see this really in early January, and our team there responded well in a similar way to what you've seen play out here in the U.S. And I do think that when you look at all the pieces that need to be put in place, exposure notification here in the U.S. is going to be an important component. Opting in as an American to participate in that, I think, could be helpful to your local community and to your economy locally and nationally coming back online. So I think as the capability comes online, we need to help educate others and help them understand why they would want to do that, while also talking about issues like testing and the vaccine so that people can see a future that gives them hope. I'm optimistic about what's going to happen here in the country. I think it's going to be challenging. I think we're going to have to solve a lot of problems. And the BRT experience has been really enlightening because the business leaders are working together to solve problems in a way that's actually really cool. We're having weekly phone calls. We've got different teams working on different pieces. And I've seen these CEOs collaborate in an appropriate way to solve the problems, to put the pieces in place together with government to create a future for the country that hopefully is better than it would have been otherwise. I certainly think so. So I think that's the way we should approach it, and we should try to learn from China and other countries and apply what we should given the way that we live here.
What's an example of where cooperation between the Business Roundtable and the government actually led to a real problem being solved recently?
Well, I think as it relates to PPE, you know, in the beginning, there was a real challenge trying to figure out how we were going to approach it. And what ended up happening is the states were sourcing PPE. BRT members were working on it as well. We partnered with Salesforce and State Farm and others, and Apple, as you know, was participating in that process. We found masks and we helped solve problems, and we communicated at state level at times to provide supplies and help people get information. And several governors have been participating on our calls as well, and I found them to be really competent and caring and good partners as we try to solve these issues.
Jet.com, you all announced yesterday, is going away, that brand. Was the acquisition worth it?
I'm sorry, what was it worth?
Yeah, was the acquisition worth it? You have Marc Lore, you got the other things that you got in that acquisition, but that was a big acquisition.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Would do that all over again. If you look at the trajectory of our business, it changed when we made that acquisition. Not only did we pick up Marc Lore and a great team, we picked up fulfillment centers, a lot of expertise that ended up paying off. And what changed is that the Walmart brand really has extended to reach all kinds of people. You know, you'll remember, Becky, you were there when we made the announcement and we talked about Jet playing a role with affluent customers, younger customers, urban customers. And what we found is that Walmart is able to do that. Our brand is stretching in a way that's really very exciting. And we've been able to attract brands to Walmart.com. That was the other role that I thought Jet was going to play, is we were going to need a brand to be able to use to attract some of the brands that did not yet want to be in our stores. And as time has gone on and our website experience has improved and our app's gotten better and we've built these capabilities, we find that brands are really comfortable coming to Walmart. And we shared some of the names yesterday, Swell and Ray-Ban and Champion. You got to go on Walmart.com and check it out to find all the others. As I may have shared with you before, it's been one of my surprises as we've grown the e-commerce business is just how many brands matter online. You know, I had been doing retail for a long time and thought I had a sense for the brands in this country and what we needed to have, but we have found a ton of important brands beyond what we ever had in the stores that we needed to have online. And so Walmart has basically just become the brand where we have the best return on investment for investing a marketing dollar or capital in the brand. And so this is about focus. I'm absolutely thankful for what Marc and the Jet team have brought to Walmart.com and to our company, and would do that all over again.
Doug, I want to thank you and your team and associates for what they're doing every day for Americans during this difficult time, and we appreciate your time today.
Thank you guys for helping educate us all.